Hey guys, welcome to a repot video. So this is kind of a continuation from last week's video, which if you didn't see that, this is where me and Charmaine received a pretty big box from Wuhoo Tropicals and we tickled each other with harmonicas to split them up. I will link that in the description. It's been a couple days since I brought the plants home with me and we are going to pot them up. So you're seeing this like way in the future. I'm trying to get better at like filming ahead of time so I don't get too overwhelmed. Basically, we have 6 plants. I'm gonna show them to you. We're gonna plant them up. And also I opened up a question box on my Instagram stories just to see if you guys had any questions or things you wanted me to talk about. So I'll kind of pull from there as we repot, and that's basically it. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath. I've been running around with the dogs all morning. I am still in absolute shock and awe that these plants are in my possession. If you watched that video, we were like trying to guess the IDs of the plants, and a lot of times we didn't get the IDs right because we thought in our mind what we thought it might be. There's no chance that they would be sending those plants to us. Like, I'm still in shock that they know who we are in the first place and that they trusted us with such beautiful plants. Holy crap, it's raining so hard outside. Oh, I want to stand in it. Anyway, I was chatting with Paulina, who works for Brian Wu. She's the one who reached out and asked us if we wanted to receive some plants. So I was like, you know, just thanking her. Like, I met the plants, like they're incredible, all that stuff. And she was like saying, she was trying to pick plants that would make us slap each other really hard with tortillas, which made me feel really good because I was really nervous for that video, that because we did a harmonica video that they would be like, what the frick is going on? Like, why, who did we send these plants to? So I'm relieved that that was kind of the expectation from them in the first place. So I'm going to show you the plants once again if you didn't watch that video. Oh, okay. Starting out, this one is going to look so cool when it's mature. This one is Nigrolaminum GG crossed with Portier. It is such a good like mix between the two. So you have the flat sinus of a port. This is still really juvenile, but you can already see that there's like no lobes, like, or the lobes are like really flat. And it has I always say it's like veiny, like the GG has this like, it looks like blood vessels running through the vein, you know, like when a bodybuilder has all their veins popping out. And I think that like it makes the GG look really just tough and textury. So it has that. You can definitely see it in this leaf as well. It is really dark. It's kind of glossy. I'm curious to see if it retains the glossiness as it matures, because a lot of times these like kind of not so velvety, kind of glossy plants can produce more velvetyness, slightly more velvetyness as it matures. Next one, I feel a bit of guilt that I have this in my collection because I think that Charmaine really wanted this. This one is Red Crystal Luxe. I'm hoping you can see a little bit of like that color shift, but it is, I can see it in the viewfinder. It's not very red. In person, it has a purpley red tint all over, but it has a bunch of different colors, very much like the Luxe Ralph Lynam Fort Sherman from Amanda. It has like an oil slick looking color, texture, finish. And I find the bumps on this like very tight. The bumps are really small and they're really closely spaced together compared to like other Luxe hybrids I have where the bumps are kind of larger. They're just a little bit more spaced out, or the leaf texture looks just different. It's funny because the genetics of a red crystal is like crystal, mag. I read at one point there might be dress in it, but it's like a very complex kind of selectively bred mutt essentially. So I'm surprised that this looks so different to like a Crystallinum Luxe or a Magnificum Luxe or a Forgetii Luxe, you know what I mean? But this one is absolutely stunning. I will try to grow it as big as I can, as quick as I can, and then cut this for Charmaine. So you best believe that these plants are getting fed really well. Another Luxe hybrid. This one is Ace of Spades crossed with Luxurians, which I completely forgot that we already had. We, like as in Charmaine, already had this plant. She won her Ace Luxe in a tortilla slap video, so that one was from Amanda. I currently have it in my possession. It's in my tent right now because Charmaine was having trouble with it. She was just like, take it, grow it, and then we'll split it up again, because she was kind of done babying that plant. So they're not the same seed batch. They're not the same hybridizer. It's the same hybrid, but it's not the same seed batch. So it will also be really interesting to see how these two differ. But it's kind of nice that like I have one and Charmaine has one. So I'm gonna grow that one out for her, give it back to her, and then I'll have this one. Maybe we can do cuttings in the future and swap. But this one definitely has a much flatter leaf texture. You can see that it's bolete and it has bumps, but it's like very, very subtle and very, very flat. I'll pop in a photo of Amanda's hybrid. It's like a more mature specimen, obviously, and it does look quite 3D. And I don't actually have a Lux hybrid that is so flat. And I think it's really great because this will obviously look very different to my other Lux hybrids. And this one has a new leaf coming in. This one, it's so beautiful. And it looks so different to the one I already own. This one is Carla Bevep. So it's gonna be a different Carla to the one I have. So the Carla that I have is Juan's Carla crossed with Grant's Bevep. So Wuhoo Tropicals has at least a couple of different like Carla types clones. One's called like Woo 1, one's called Woo 2. I don't know if there's more. I should probably study more of what he has in his collection, but this one is obviously different, and you can see, maybe you can't see, I can see because I have a plant, that it's so much more minimal. The veins are really, really minimal, and it doesn't have a vibrant sinus. It doesn't have vibrant veins running through. It is quite dark, and it's very like, it's such a nice velvety, soft finish. I'm very curious what it'll look like when it matures and how it will look different to my current one. I'm positive it's going to look quite different. So I'm so happy to have this in my collection. Okay, so after we filmed that last video, I looked up, this is Anthurium Wendlingeri, by the way. I looked up what the Wuhoo Tropicals Wendlingeri looks like because there's so many different kind of variations on the Wendlingeri. The one that I have, this one right here, I don't know which one it is. I hope that someone will be able to identify it for me, but I truly don't know. I got it from a local seller here who got it from Singapore. That's all I know. I'm almost certain the Wuhoo Tropicals one is going to be a different one. And I really wanted a Wendlingeri that had a lot of dimples. I was kind of like halfway, you know, kind of a little bit on the hunt for an NSC Wendlingeri because those are like super dimply. But I'm so happy to have this in my collection. I'm glad that I have experience growing a Wendley. I have confidence in my ability to grow this one, which will mean that between me and Charmaine, we have 3 Wendleys because she has one from Amanda, which is originally from JV. We have this one, and then we have this one. And just looking at the size difference between what I assume is the previous leaf, so this one went to this one, I'm pretty confident that in no time it's going to be like a strappy plant, not like a humongously strappy plant, but like definitely strappier than this, like a medium strap. The Wendley that I have, I took a bottom cutting for Charmaine sometime like maybe around a year ago, and it was probably about this size, like minus the big leaf, it was about this size. And now she has a leaf probably like this big, like that. And in my experience, the Wendley, like this one, took such a long time to get going, and once it got going, it was kind of like a non-stop grower. So yeah, there's that one. And then last but not least, I can't believe I'm holding this in my hand. A freaking Carla Blackier. Just gonna need a moment to reflect on what my life is. If you've been watching my channel for the last year, you'll know that this plant has been just the top of my wish list. And I had one. The thing is, I had one from Wuhoo, a little butt cutting. It was like maybe like this big. It was from Amanda. So Amanda does own a Wuhoo Carla, and it's so pretty. And it was like the biggest cut that she was able to make, and I was pretty confident I was gonna be able to like get that one to grow, but unfortunately it simply gave up. And one day I just, you know, pressed on it, and then it just disintegrated in my hands, and that was devastating. absolutely devastating. So I cannot tell you how grateful I am to be able to have this chance to grow this Carla. I'm telling you right now, it's going to get all the babying from me possible. So there's like two kind of styles of plant parenting, like two general styles. There's like the helicopter parent that, like, you know, is always on top of the watering, always on the feed, you know, make sure that everything is like really dialed in, the light, the feed, the watering schedule. And then there's like the kind of parent which is like very neglectful. There's obviously something to be said for both styles, because a lot of the neglectful parents can grow absolutely massive plants. So case in point, my friend Erin, Unruly Botany, she has a tent in her basement. She is so busy. She's a wedding planner, like a really busy wedding planner, and she's like really into horses, but she has these absolutely massive plants and they just thrive on neglect. And then also I'm thinking of another friend of mine, Lauren. She is more of like the helicopter parent. I think I sit somewhere in between the two, but Lauren is more like, she is on it. And obviously because plants are her business, it's her livelihood, so she has to be on it, but she does not let those plants dry out. She keeps them well fed. They never ever dry out, and her plants grow really well as well. So I do plan on injecting a little bit of like Lauren into my habits. I'm trying to be a more attentive plant parent, especially with my anthuriums that I want to grow really big and be able to cross them and things like that. So this one is gonna get so much love and so much attention. Yeah, so we're gonna plant these up. I think right now all of them are in like somewhat of a soil mix. I'm gonna like open this up and be able to kind of guess what's in the soil mix later. I can't really see that well right now, but it is soil. So I could, in theory, keep growing it in this soil, or the other thing was I was planning on transitioning them to tree fern fiber. I'm super confident that like most, if not all of these plants can grow well in pond, but I was thinking tree fern just to kind of like acclimate them to my space, because my tree fern, which is a mixture of tree fern fiber and perlite and pond, it's a lot more similar to what they're currently in. Or what I could also do is mix tree fern in with their soil. That's also an option. I'm just gonna see where my heart takes me when I unpot these plants, but that's generally the idea. I have a couple of vessel options. So I have these square pots. I don't want to plant them too small. I think that anthuriums personally don't want to be that like tightly constricted inside of a pot. So I want to give them an opportunity to kind of like stretch their roots out and search for water. The other option, if the root system is really small, is plant them no drainage in one of these little cups. So yeah, I'm gonna set up my potting station and we're just gonna get going. And I'm just gonna start pulling questions. I took screenshots. I'm definitely not gonna be able to get through all of these questions. There were a lot of like interesting questions, but I feel like it's gonna be way too long of a video. There's just some topics I could just go on and on and on about. So maybe I'll save that for a future repot. I might focus more on the plant related questions. I think we're gonna have to be headless for this. I just don't think there's any other way. Also, I'm potting on like the smallest bin of all time. I wish I had like a very small little table that I could pot in. I kind of like to be on the floor, but this is like a tiny bin, so hopefully things don't go flying. Let us start with the Ace Lux and get this out of the pot and see what we're working with. So the really nice thing, if you are ordering from Wuhoo and into Canada, is that they don't need to unpot the plant. They can ship them in the substrate that they're growing in. So they have these like squishy pots. I've gotten these pots before from like past imports, like from Indonesia. I definitely see a bunch of benefits to this kind of pot because it's soft. So if you're trying to get a root bound plant out of it, like it's so easy to massage the root system out, and also the drainage hole is just a big one in the middle, so even if you have escaped roots, it's gonna be easy to pull them back through. And for shipping purposes, you can just have the polyfill here and just kind of pinch the top closed and just keep that substrate enclosed. It's nice, it's nice. All right, let's see this soil mix. It feels a little bit sandy. I might be wrong, it might just be the tiniest perlite. There's definitely like bark and stuff mixed through. it might actually be a good mix with tree fern if I want to do a tree fern soil. I actually wouldn't mind doing that. Here's the root system, looking super lovely. No rot whatsoever. I can't stop looking at this leaf right here. It is so black and so almost holographic. I'm so in love with this plant. Yeah, let's mix this substrate with tree fern, because I definitely want to reuse this substrate. There's like absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's nice to have a little piece of Texas, because if you didn't know, Wuhoo Tropicals is based in Houston, which I was talking to Paulina after, and I was like, I really want to come visit, because I have family mostly in Dallas, but I also have family in Houston. One of my cousins lives in Houston, and the rest of that branch of the family lives in Dallas, Texas. And it's been so long since I've been to Texas. I think it's been like at least 5 or 6 years, and it's such a quick, like, it's just like, I think a 5-hour flight or something like that. And I keep talking about like, oh, maybe going down there for American Thanksgiving or something. Definitely not in the summer. I had to be there in the summer 2 years in a row. Both of my cousins were getting married like consecutive summers, and both of them were outdoor weddings, and it's like 38 degrees Celsius, so blistering hot. I was like, I don't want to do that again. I simply don't. Okay, so this one is definitely gonna go in one of these square pots. I have been lining the bottom of these pots with leca. Here's my reasoning. So I like to, and I know this works because Lauren does this a lot, and her anthuriums are very happy. One thing you can do is sit this in water so only the leca touches the water, and it slowly is just like a self-watering system for the plant, and the anthurium therefore never dries out. I'm of the opinion that anthuriums don't ever want to fully dry out. It's not like a ZZ plant, or maybe even a Hoya, which arguably prefers like a dry wet cycle. I personally don't think the majority of anthuriums appreciate that. So that's a benefit of doing this. The other thing is that you get to use an inch of a substrate other than tree fern, which then stretches my tree fern further. But tree fern can definitely get quite muddy if you saturate it with too much water. Let's sit you like so. Oh, right, questions. Wait, let me pull up some questions. Okay, I'm gonna start with an easy one. The question is, wondering if you have or will use beneficials and thoughts on those. So for the past few years, I have not been spending any money on beneficial predatory mites, beneficial insects. The reason being that I just didn't need to up until about a year ago. So prior to that, the only pest I ever had was thrips once that came in on a tropicals order, and mealybugs. And for thrips, I found that spinosad worked so well, and it just kind of took care of the problem. I was like, I don't need to spend money on beneficials, which is actually more expensive than spinosad. So I didn't see the need to do that. The other thing is mealybugs. I haven't found, mealybugs are so gross, and they're such a nuisance, and they're so hard to eradicate, in my opinion. But they don't really do that much damage to the plant, and they pretty much only go on my Hoyas and my succulents. So again, I didn't feel the need to do beneficials for mealies. Not that I even know where to even begin with beneficials for mealies. If there is a beneficial predatory insect for mealybugs, I have no idea. And then last year, when I first started to find spider mites on my plants, which, by the way, I personally have a theory that it's the use of imidacloprid, which so many people are using bonide granules. When people started bringing bonide granules up to Canada from the States, because a lot of pesticides are banned in Canada, but when people started bringing them, people were just buying them up like crazy, using them for everything. And I think because imidacloprid has been proven to cause this like wild orgy reproductive frenzy with spider mites. I think that we are the ones responsible for causing this massive spider mite outbreak throughout the community. But that's my theory for where the spider mite issue kind of started. That we were basically breeding them. I was under the impression, and I'm assuming it was a false impression, that all beneficials need high humidity to kind of like activate and just survive. So I was like, what's the point in getting beneficials other than for my tent when like the majority of my spider mite issues are outside in ambient humidity? So I just didn't want to spend the money. I wanted to kind of stick with the systemic route. So using like Azamax or using Captain Jack's or Safer's End All, Spider Mite Knockout, those kinds of things. And I wanted to stick with, I guess, chemicals to eradicate the spider mites because I just didn't think, I didn't want to waste money on buying predatory mites if they weren't even going to survive out in like living room conditions. By the way, this one is done and I'll plant it up. I've got the stem all covered up. I'm gonna come back to the mites thing in a second, but they sent these tags, which I want to keep because it has the Wuhoo on the back, but they also sent these delicious looking black plant tags, which I also want to use, but this doesn't look the best. And you know what? I'm gonna print my own label for this and use their sexy black plant tag while I finish answering the question. So all of that to say, I've done probably a year of trying to use chemicals, all different kinds. So I've tried Azamax. It burned a lot of my plants. I've tried Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew. It didn't do anything. Well, it maybe kept it at neutral, like it was like a net zero improvement. It didn't harm the plants. And then I've done Safer's End All, which does kill mites, but it hasn't eradicated spider mites. And I've used Spider Mite Knockout recently. That's my most recent one. I've got it right here next to me. This one here, which I actually purchased from Lauren. She does stock this from time to time, but just not all the time. But I think you can get it like at hardware stores. And then just very, very recently, Lauren got in a shipment of spickle mites. So I'll show you a packet right now. Pull it off of this plant. It's from the brand Copper. This company is in Canada. So this one is called Spickle Ultimite. So you just hang this on your plants, and it's like Lauren recommends 1 tag per plant if it's kind of like standing on its own and not touching other plants. Oh my gosh, I just noticed my Queen of Hearts is flowering. Well, isn't that wonderful? So what I didn't know is that the spickle mites they say that they will be active in living room conditions. It doesn't need to be super warm and super humid. So I wanted to give that a try. So I bought 30 packets of those mites and I've hung them all throughout my plant room, in my tent. I've done a few in my living room, and we will see. Lauren really does swear by beneficials, and I'm gonna give it a good try, but we shall see. I just want spider mites gone out of my life. Right now, my collection is not that bad for spider mites. Probably the worst it is for spider mites is in my living room because that's where it's like the driest and where my plants are the most neglected. I will link this label maker in the description. It's the same label maker that Jing and Charmaine use. It just connects to Bluetooth on your phone. It's very cute. You can change the fonts. And I don't think the label tape refills are very expensive. It's a pretty good option. I've been using it a lot. And there we are. Plop you in there. These tags are so beautiful. I've recently gotten, Lauren's actually gotten clear plant tags, and I haven't started using them yet because I haven't been tagging up my plants. I really do need to do, but these black ones are just so pretty as well. I don't even mind that you can see them because it looks so elegant. So yeah, so to close off that last question, I'm hoping that because my spider mite situation right now, especially in the plant room, is very much under control. I don't think that is fully eradicated, but I've had quite a few new leaves come in, especially from anthuriums, where you can really like see the speckling damage that the mites leave. I've had a few come out completely unscathed, so I'm pretty hopeful that like the beneficials will be like just wipe them out completely. We shall see. But my general opinion is that like I don't doubt that they work and that they are like a non-toxic, like natural, organic way to control pests. And especially in certain situations, you have to use mites. Like if you're growing vegetables and you don't want to use like pesticides. The only downfall for me is that with certain pests, sometimes you need quite a humid environment. So I think the one that targets thrips, the cucumeris mites, do need high humidity and warmth, and also the cost. This one has quite a small root system. This one's the Carla Bevep, so I'll probably put it into a little cup. I think I'll still do tree fern soil. I just cleaned the floor of my plant room yesterday and I'm already making it so dirty. Okay, next question. Oh, what do you do if something gets root rot in tree fern? Do you have to sanitize it somehow? I personally would try to sanitize it. So I'm very lazy when it comes to cleaning substrates. Like I just cannot be bothered to boil leca, boil pon. So what I have been doing is baking my tree fern if I want to sanitize it. So just recently, well, I recently have been doing a lot of repotting off camera just because I know that I'll never get through it all if I was just to wait for filming to repot. So I've been trying to like, you know, do some repotting in the kitchen, which I've mentioned before is where Doug is kind of, that's his space that he has free roam over. So I can leave him in there. He can't really make too much of a mess. It's all hardwood floor. So even if he has an accident, which like knock on wood, lately he's been really good at holding it. And the potty training is going really well, but because he's there and he can get bored, he can get lonely. So I find it's like a good way to multitask. I can get repotting done, but I can be in there with him and keep him company. So I've been getting a lot of plants out of pots. A lot of them are in tree fern, a lot of them are in pon, and I just have been sanitizing them in the oven. So the tree fern, I'll put it into like a baking tray with parchment paper, and then I'll just bake it at like I put 200 on my oven because I'm pretty sure my oven runs hot. So I do 200 degrees for like about 20 to 30 minutes, and then I take it out, let it cool down, and just pop it back into my container. For pon, I pretty much do the same thing, except that I rinse it in a sieve first to get some sediment out, to get some extra, I don't know, nutrients and stuff out, and then I do the same thing and bake them in the oven. I just find it so much more less messy than boiling. Okay, I'm gonna combine two in one because one question I get all the time. So this question is, do you like your anthurium completely dry before watering? I already touched on this a little bit earlier, but no. I find that anthuriums, they are really thirsty, especially if they're pushing a leaf, pushing an inflow, growing berries. They take up so much water, and in general I find them to be pretty heavy feeders. I've definitely seen nutrient deficiency issues show up quicker in anthuriums versus other genera, and I just think that underwatering an anthurium causes more damage than, I'm just going to compare it to philodendrons. So if you underwater a philodendron, it might droop, or if it's pushing a leaf, it'll just kind of like stop pushing that leaf until you water it, then it'll kind of like resume. Whereas if you underwater an anthurium or like let it get too dry or completely dry before watering it while it's pushing a leaf, that leaf will just not form well. It will not look very good. So I never let my anthuriums, not never. In an ideal world, I would never let my anthuriums completely dry out, like bone dry. It has happened in the past, and I actually find that with great white, you're less likely, or I have been less likely to see drought damage on plants. This one is also done, the Carla Bevep. I think it will be like maybe 6 weeks before it's ready to be moved into a larger pot. And then the other question I get all the time, which I realized that I never really talked about this. Oh, there's people working outside. They're making quite a ruckus. I hope you can't hear that. People always ask me if I keep a reservoir in pond. And I never addressed this in a video or anything because I was like, I'm pretty sure I say this all the time, but I don't think I actually say it out loud. I just do it. And unless you're like really watching the videos, which I know a lot of people don't, they just leave it on in the background. Unless you're watching carefully, you won't know that. So yes, I do keep a reservoir in pond, even if it's in drainage. So what I've been doing lately with some plants, not all, I still like to plant in no drainage pond, like glass vessel, but sometimes I will use a pot like this, pond planted, and then a deli cup, shallow deli cup here, so that I could leave a reservoir. So typically I would like to keep like at least an inch of water at the bottom. So that's essentially the same kind of idea as what I'm doing now with the tree fern soil with the leca at the bottom. It can sit in like a small layer of water, but I wouldn't let that water go above the leca, ideally. If it does, then I'll just probably like tip some out. We want to know your DIY pond recipe. I am so sorry, you guys. I am the absolute worst. But I do want to talk a little bit about the DIY pond thing. I'm still wrestling with like how I want to do the video because I'm not someone who makes my own pond all the time. I've used DIY pond before. It was not my recipes, and it's not like I'm an expert on making DIY pond. So I'm thinking what the video would be is essentially like growing in pond, my experience growing in pond. By the way, if you want to make your own pond, here is a recipe, here are the components, here is what I would do, that kind of thing. What do you guys think? Is that even useful? And if there are certain things that you think would be beneficial in a pond video. So I was thinking of covering topics of like, let's choose a pond, making your own pond, how to plant in pond, no drainage with pond, and drainage with pond. If there was that kind of video, is there anything specific you think would be beneficial to cover? And already as I'm describing this video, it sounds like it's going to be a really, really long one. But yeah, it's still on the list. I am so sorry. It's not been made yet. Another question, do you want to do any other anthurium crosses besides the Dark Phoenix? Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, this cross that I'm trying to do right now, well, like trying to plan, is also with Dark Phoenix. So currently my anthurium from Amanda, my RA5 self, is in flower. I want to cross it with Jing's Dark Phoenix, which is still a Dark Phoenix cross. I'm working on the GG port, by the way. The only trouble is Jing's Dark Phoenix has just finished producing berries, like literally just finished producing berries. So if you are in the market for Dark Phoenix self, she's going to have them ready for sale very soon. As of recording this video, she's only just harvested the first couple days worth of berries. So we definitely do need to give her plant a little bit of a rest. So most likely what will happen is I am going to harvest pollen off my plant because my plant is so young. I'm not going to pollinate that first flower, but if it does produce pollen, I'm definitely going to be harvesting that and hopefully crossing it with her Dark Phoenix. I'm still waiting for my Dark Phoenix to flower. I recently, and by recently I mean like yesterday, repotted my Dark Phoenix in like the biggest glass vessel I own. So after this, we're gonna have to be looking at buckets for that plant. What other crosses? Well, I mean, now that I have a Carla in my possession, I definitely want to be producing more of those, which is not gonna be anytime soon. And by the time my plant flowers and is able to be bred, I feel like the Carla hype is going to be well past died down, but that doesn't matter because I will love that plant forever. Unless it dies, or unless it, I don't know, I can't see this happening. Unless it is such an annoying plant to grow that I fall out of love with it. I simply can't see that happening just based on what other people say about Carla and their experience growing it. I don't think it's going to be wildly different from other anthuriums. I would probably try to prioritize either selfing it or crossing it with a different Carla, but it would definitely be a good one to be breeding. This is not a cross, but very recently I pollinated my Wenlingeri with Wenli pollen, and that Wenli pollen came from the same type of Wenli. So my friend and I, Veronica, we both bought Wenlis from the same seller that got the same huge batch of Wenlis from Singapore. So it's the same variant of Wenlingeri. So her pollen on my plant. But I also want to cross my Wenli. If this doesn't take, I want to try it with Charmaine's Wenlingeri. So like two different kind of types of Wenlingeri. So this one is also done. This one is the Ace Lux. Okay, next question. Okay, this one's, I'm not going to answer this question, but it would be a question I want to answer in a future video. Customer experience in your coffee shop before. I assume you mean like kind of stories about customers in coffee shops. I would love to do that. I just don't know if there's like any interest. Oh, this one's in moss. Interesting. I get it's fun to talk shit about customers because customers can be, they can be morons. It's true. Customers can be morons. I know because I'm a customer and I know that I've been a moron. And so, sometimes we do absolutely ridiculous things that maybe is not even in our character. But yeah, I definitely have stories, but I just don't know how much, you know, if that would be really boring for people. I think I would love to do more podcast types of things, really based kind of on my advice for people in coffee, advice for people maybe starting out in like entry-level positions, how to get the most out of learning skills and things like that. But I also am aware that probably the majority of my audience is not that young. They're maybe more my age. So you're probably not starting out at an entry-level position. At least that's what YouTube analytics tell me, that you're mainly around like my age bracket, which actually now my age bracket has moved. It's usually, what is it, 28 to 34 was one, but now I'm in like I'm 36 now, so like I'm into like the 40s. So yeah, I won't answer that question, but if you guys have suggestions on how to maybe approach a topic like that, which I want to keep it fun. It's like we can talk shit about customers and things people do in coffee shops that are annoying or like don't do this kind of thing. Yeah, so yeah, let me know what you think about that for a future video. Best way to size up anthuriums. Listen, you are asking the wrong person. I do not size up my anthuriums very big. I'll answer this question the best way I know how, based on what I know of people who actually size up their anthuriums. So it's gonna have to be like everyone assesses this and tweaks it to their own conditions. And I think that one thing that is like possibly undervalued or underestimated in the hobby is the importance of light and the importance of understanding how much light your plant is actually receiving and how that will affect your plant's growth, the speed of growth, the sizing up of growth, which is why I was so excited when the Houseplant Journal LTH meter came out, because light meters existed, but they didn't all have light, temperature, and humidity combined in one. And obviously I wanted to support Daryl, so I purchased that, and even just using it once helped me understand light so much more, and understanding that what I considered adequate lighting for growing a plant was actually quite low. So there's plants that I would have assumed was like around 100-foot candles. It was actually probably like 12. And anecdotally, I've had friends move from like normal lighting houses to a place with like wraparound floor to ceiling windows, and them just noticing a huge burst of growth with their plants, and their plants were thriving without barely any work on their part. And that's just like us probably correlating light with visibility, like our eyes' ability to see things. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, this is the LTH meter. by Houseplant Journal. I will link this in the description. I purchased this with my own money. He did not send this to me. But just so you guys can see, this is the light that you're getting right now. 30 something foot candles of light with my softbox pointed at you, which is not enough to grow the majority of plants. So I would say, just as a general advice, is to make sure that your plants are getting light, a good amount of light. Don't obviously scorch the plants. You'll have to find a happy medium, but I mean, it has other benefits too, because the more light your plant's receiving, the more it's going to be using up the water, the less likely you're going to get like root rot from too wet. Doug is screaming downstairs. I'm gonna go check on him in a second. And also another thing you can look at tweaking is like total light received over the course of a day. So you could increase your grow light, say they're on for 10 hours, increase it to 12 hours, 14 hours. Increasing the total light received in a day would also result in more photosynthesis, more plant food for the plant. Okay, I'm gonna go downstairs and just check on the dogs. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. They are fine. They just wanted attention, which I don't have time for right now. What anthurium shape do you visually enjoy the most? Long lows versus cute and chubby? Oh, that's such a good question. I can't decide. I truly can't decide. I'm of the opinion that variety is important. Variety of plants helps us to not get tired of things so quickly. If all of my anthuriums, even though I do love dark and velvety, I do love a nice like elongated, slender looking plant, like dark and mysterious looking plant, I wouldn't enjoy if my entire collection was like that. Not that that was the question, but I wouldn't just like focus on collecting those, just because I know myself and how my opinions change all the time. And I've gone through enough phases to know that like my love for one type of look is not going to last forever. And I will also go through like mini phases. Like right now I'm really into like round and chubby. Right now I'm really into bolete and textured, and that will change. And also knowing that like when I get overexposed to one certain thing, it does cause some fatigue with that look or that species or whatever. It's kind of weird. I'm just picking out some of the moss because I don't want to use the moss. I don't know what it is about, and maybe it's just I'm reading into it and it's not actually the case. But I feel like I kind of have a tendency to grow plants kind of like narrow and long versus like round. I just have a couple of examples in my mind. Like my Dark Phoenix tends to be quite elongated and narrow versus Jings, which is a lot more round. My Gloriosums tend to grow more on the narrow side versus that really round and chubby that my friends seem to be growing. Do you ever have like two different snacks and like you take a bite of one, you're like, yep, that's the flavor I want right now. And then you take the bite of the other one, you're like, no, I like this flavor more. And you can't really decide which one. So it's kind of like that when it comes to anthuriums and leaf shapes in general. But yeah, I do enjoy having like a wide variety of visual interests, because that allows me to like kind of fixate on or like be really enamored by one type of look at a time, and just keeps things interesting for me. Not a plant question at all. What was Alice like in high school? I cannot believe how long it's been since I graduated high school. It's gonna be 20 years pretty soon, in like a year and a half. That's just insane to me. So I went to quite a small school. It was a private school, which if you're in the UK, I don't know about the rest of Europe, but in the UK, a private school means something totally different. So public school in UK, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like very posh. Public school here means that it's like the government funded, it's free for people to send their kids to. You go there based on your jurisdiction or your catchment area. My parents sent me to a private school where you pay tuition and you have to wear a uniform, which is, again, I'm using UK as an example because my boyfriend's from there, so I have more of an insight into like the day-to-day life, but uniforms here are not common. So we had to wear like the blouse and the cardigan, the kilt, the black shoes, the knee-high socks, which looking back was great. I think that uniforms are great. I think it just kind of levels the playing field for kids. I'm very glad that I went to the school that I did in general, but also I'm glad that I went to a school where I had to wear a uniform and my parents didn't have to spend crazy money trying to outfit me. So the school was pretty small. So within my entire grade, there was maybe less than 100 people, 100 students. So I would say my class was very tame. There wasn't really much bullying. There was definitely cliques and stuff, but not to what I consider an unhealthy level. There were like a few different pockets of like cool kids, and I would say I was probably part of the cool kids, but not like a leader. I was probably more like a supporting character in the cool kids club, which basically meant that there was no pressure on me in any way, and I always had friends, and I just absolutely adored high school. I was so sad to graduate high school, and I know that's so lame, and like the people who loved high school turn out to be like the most uninteresting people like as a stereotype, but I can't deny it. I really loved high school. I was just like so happy to just be there, and I just enjoyed the whole experience so much. And I also think that like school wasn't very difficult for me. I don't know how I did it, because academically in university I didn't do very well. I barely passed my classes. I barely got my university degree, but in high school I found it really easy. And I remember the teachers would just describe me as like la-di-da, do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that, and get good grades with like almost no effort. I'm not saying that to brag, because I think it just goes to show how different high school experiences can be for everyone. And like success in high school does not mean success after high school. As you can see, I ended up getting like just a useless Bachelor of Arts degree in university after high school. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. In high school, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my friends. I think my friends were really wholesome, and like I really did play it safe. I did not drink, did not do drugs. We would just get together at each other's houses and watch scary movies, make silly videos, very harmless things like that. Probably the most rebellious thing I ever did in high school was when I got my license, my driver's license, and I drove just stupidly fast. I think back on what kind of a driver I was in high school, and I want to smack myself so hard, just because I would never drive like that now. It is so dangerous, and they do say that like girls are so much more reckless on the road when they're young drivers. And I do agree. I was one of those drivers. I drove so stinking fast. I thought I was invincible. I actually quite like this mix of bare soil with tree fern, because look how gritty that looks, and like it looks like it's very aerated, but I think there's a good amount of soil, and the tree fern is fluffy and fine enough that I think it will retain enough moisture that it's not like drying out in a few days. I think that's really nice, which is good because the next plant I'm gonna pot up is my Carla Blackier. Not necessarily plant items that make plant keeping just a smidge easier. I'm probably not even gonna think of all of them right now, but I'm gonna try to think of a few that I rely on pretty heavily. Okay, so the first one is a bench scraper. So this is like used in baking when you're like working with doughs, when you're creating pastries and stuff on a bench. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is what a bench scraper is. So you can get like plastic ones. I got a plastic one just for free from a supplier from work, and I use that so much to clean up my potting space, because a brush, if you're brushing an area, things get left behind by the brush, and also things get stuck in the brush. So I find a bench scraper so good to keep just a really clean scrape, and I use that to clean my exos. You can get these from the dollar store. If you really want to order off Amazon, I will link one if you're in Canada. So basically, I mean, even in a potting situation, let's use this as a bench scraper. You're basically just doing this. And you don't really leave any crumbs behind. I guess it's the same idea as one of those, like when you're in a fancy restaurant, when the servers come by and scrape the crumbs off after your bread course. What else? A bar cart to organize your plant supplies. So right now, the one I'm using is from IKEA. I've had that one since I was, I don't know, probably like almost 10 years. It's in the cream color, which I don't think they do anymore, but they always do different colors every year. I use that to organize all my fertilizers, like the little bits and bobs that I use a lot, like scissors, shears, plant tags, the cups that I use often, pesticides, myco, all the little bits that look kind of ugly on its own. When it's all in a utility cart, it looks better and it's all contained in one spot. So my bar cart is literally just behind me here. And if you're using the IKEA one, they actually sell like a cover for it now. So it's like a bamboo cover, like lid that goes on the top, which if you're potting small little things, it can actually double as like a potting surface. So I really recommend getting that lid. It's, I think for you, if you wanted to make your own, it probably would cost you around the same money as what IKEA is producing it for. So they sell it for like $14, I think, something like that. It's really good. I really recommend that lid for the bar cart. So I think this one is actually done. Another thing I've been using very heavily is deli cups, which you can get from any like food supply place. I'm trying to find a plant that's, oh, okay, here. So it's like, if you're planting in no drainage, but you don't want to keep buying glass vessels because glass vessels are getting so expensive because the thrift stores they're wising up to us. This is a really great way to plant in no drainage, or just in general, because it's clear so you can see through it. They're way cheaper than glass vessels. You can dome these things, so you can do like one on top of the other. If you're trying to like rehab a plant, you could make drainage holes if you want to really easily, more safely than you could with glass. Yeah, deli cups are really great. And you can also get the like half height ones. So they're like this. I think they're like 12 ounce or 24 ounce, something like that. So those I've been finding really great as a reservoir saucer. So short little deli cup as a little reservoir when like a saucer is not quite enough. So if you're planting in leca, in pond, something like that, but you're planting, like if you want to have the ability to plant in drainage holes, be able to flush your pot through, but you still want to grow in semi-hydro, the short deli cup is great. This is what I use for my fertilizers. So, oh my gosh, it's so dirty. This is TPS1 and I have the dilution right here. It's so crusty because of the TPS1, but I just do like pumps. So like I shake it up before I use it and just pump it. This is from Muji and I find that this one doesn't really like make too much of a mess. It doesn't clog, which is the main thing, because TPS1, as you can see, does crystallize when it gets dry. And I haven't had any issues like pumping through this. Like it's never been clogged, and I've refilled this. I've used up an entire bottle of this and I refilled it once and I have never had clogging issues. A little bit of dribbling issues, but I think it's mainly because like sometimes I will pump and then like take away my watering can too quickly and there's still a little bit of residual, but it doesn't just like continuously drip. So I'm specifically recommending the Muji one because I've heard that some people use soap dispensers that do clog and stuff like that. I'm sure there's so many more and are probably like are dotted throughout my videos. Sometimes I don't even think of them as non-plant supplies anymore because I've been using them for plants for so long. But anyway, this is now done. It looks a little bit silly right now, I know, because the pot is so big relative to the plant, and I have left a little bit of space, so it's only planted to here. So as the plant gets taller, I can add more substrate, provided it hasn't filled up the bottom with roots yet. And I think that like if all goes well, I project that it will be putting out a leaf in the next couple of weeks. Just seeing as this is fully hardened off, fingers crossed, I really hope that it does push out a leaf. And once it pushes out a leaf, if it's any bigger than this one, it won't look so silly anymore. So we're just preparing for the future. So all of the plants are now done. Here they all are. just a little bit later off camera. I'm not going to do it now because I don't have it here with me, but I'm just going to water it lightly with great white water. So it just does dissolve some great white in water and just give them a little bit of like a drink. I don't want to saturate the whole substrate because the soil was already watered and the tree fern was slightly damp. So it doesn't really need a lot of water, but I do want to inoculate those roots with myco. And that's pretty much it. And they're gonna go sit in my tent, which I have cleared so much space for. That was part of the reason why I did do a bit of a purge and move a bunch of stuff out of my tent, just because I knew these were coming. I knew those Amanda plants were coming. Amanda pants. I always say Amanda pants. So there's plenty of space for these ones to go in the tent and grow happily, hopefully, happily. If I can get organized, I'll try to show you a little footage of where they end up sitting inside the tent. But yeah, again, I want to say a huge thank you to Wuhoo Tropicals for sending these plants to us. I am just in awe that this is my life, that I have the privilege to grow such beautiful plants. I just want to say thank you so much. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this repot video. Hopefully you got some repotting done yourself. Again, if you have any like additions, questions, suggestions for how to restructure any of the video ideas that I mentioned earlier, or question ideas, repot topic ideas, feel free to leave in the comments. But I'm gonna go. I can hear the dogs going nuts downstairs. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Mwah.